From her re-election win, to abortion, to charter schools, I sit down one-on-one with State Representative Lin Bennett for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. And listen to this interview later on the free Quintin's Close-Ups iHeartRadio podcast. Representative Lin Bennett, it is so good to see you.
Merry Christmas, my friend.
Likewise. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How about you?
I'm doing great. I know that obviously you've been reelected as House District Representative.
I was reelected this last November. I've been up there already for the reorganization, which always is an interesting process, and you got to have fun. You know, what else can you do?
What is that process like right now in your mind?
Reorganization?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, the first term it was crazy. This term I knew what to expect. And it's just, you kind of know what the results are going to be based on speaking to people and, just going around.
Yeah.
I mean, I will admit that we were all surprised that Mr. White didn't get appointed to the Ways and Means Committee. None of us expected that. But, you kind of have an idea of where people are going. So it wasn't as, what's the word I'm looking for? Crazy, maybe. No, it's still crazy. Surprising, as it was 2 years ago, because I still think the drawing the counties out of the hat and everybody running for their seats like a Chinese fire drill is interesting, but that's just not going to change.
And about you, 2 years ago to right now, what is it like to be Representative Lin Bennett?
I don't think it's any different. I mean, my neighbors are still my neighbors. My friends are still my friends. I have met some interesting people along the way. I have learned a lot. So there's nothing negative to say about it.
Okay.
Campaigning is campaigning. It's not the most fun part of running for office, but I have met some wonderful people and learned some wonderful things. I would have never have had the opportunity had I not been in this job.
I know it may be a redundant question, but how has this particular position and really a public service position changed you as a person?
Maybe it's made me softer. Maybe it's made me more understanding than before, because I get the opportunity to look at issues and problems from a whole different angle as a representative rather than an activist or just a citizen who's not happy with SCANA, for example. You get to get into things. Not that you can't, but most people don't. It's a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of stuff.
Sure.
And so, I think it has made me more understanding, but it's also probably made me more resolved in why I believe the things that I believe.
You talk about those issues. You obviously talk about SCANA. Can I take you there? Because
sure, I don't know what to tell you, but I feel like I hear
okay.
Anyway, yeah, you can take me to SCANA.
Obviously, that was a controversial merger deal. When you look back at when those negotiations began to where it is right now, where does your mind go to?
Well, the House of Representatives, all we could do is fix the law.
Okay.
And fix the PSC and fix the Oversight Review Committee. But we really have no say in what private industry, what businesses want to do. So there was no way we could get involved really with the merger on a legislative basis.
Sure.
That's up to them, and then it's up to the people who are appointed to the PSC to decide if that was a good deal or not for the citizens of South Carolina. I don't necessarily feel like it, this is my personal opinion, that it was a good idea. They were concerned about bankruptcy. Everybody's concerned about bankruptcy, so they allowed the merger to go forward. The only thing that I could say is we got to let it happen and keep an eye on it and make sure that it does work, and maybe possibly looking at a competitive market for electrical resources, because I'm going to be now a customer of an industry, of a business, particularly Dominion, that I don't care for because they were deceptive to the ratepayers, I believe. Everybody still thinks there's going to be $1,000 coming to them now that it's not there. It was never there. I thought it was just one of those tools that they use to try to win people over. There is no $1,000. You're going to get a $22 cut in your monthly electric bill, but that's only an average. So you might be someone that's only going to get 10, or you might get 12. They don't explain this to the public very well, in my opinion, and I think there's a reason for it.
How well did they explain this to you all, the South Carolina House of Representatives?
Well, they tried to explain it to us the same way they tried to explain it to the public, but I'm not saying we're smarter than people, but if you're in business, you understand what they're saying. Most people aren't business people. They're just trying to raise their families, pay their electric bill, and keep their house warm and their family safe. They don't understand all the time the complications that go into business decisions and how business talks. Mm. And they talk like a business, and they talked and they talked, and they talked pretty. But I've been in business, and I wasn't buying it. It was too pretty.
I know another thing that you're not really buying is obviously this particular article that's coming down from WIS, and it has something to do with charter schools. Mm-hmm. The headline reads this: state lawmakers looking into ways to hold charter school or authorizers accountable. The headline goes on to say this: a committee of lawmakers is looking into charter schools and what changes should be made to hold the groups in charge of sponsoring their charters accountable.
I'm going to be honest with you. Basically, what has happened is we had one charter school authorizer, and it was the public charter school district, and it was an authorizer. And then, Erskine came along, and Erskine was very much interested in virtual education because they do a lot of that at their school. So they were looking, and the virtual education part of charter school does struggle, but it struggles because of the kinds of people that get into it. It's kids that are maybe suspended from school and want to continue with their studies, or probably more like their parents want them to continue with their studies. It's sick children. It's children that are in circumstances that's beyond their control, and they want to be able to continue their education, so they can sign up for these virtual classes. And so it's not going to be a top level math and science school. It's just not going to be. But it does serve the purpose, and children do get through it, and it does help them. It's very helpful to them. Well, when they did that, when they were recognized as an authorizer, immediately a whole bunch of other charter schools under the public charter school went to Erskine and wanted to transfer. Well, under the law, that's allowed. Mm. Under the law, that's allowed. So, they took a look at it, and they felt they could handle the charter schools. Now, they've had charter schools request to transfer, but they've turned them down because they know what they can handle. You don't have to accept every charter school that applies with you. Neither does the public charter school, and they don't. Okay. For whatever reasons, they have a plan, and so it gets complicated. So I think there's a little bit of you're infringing upon my territory feeling about this is really what it boils down to. In the process of doing my homework, I ran across these IG reports, right, which concerned me. And so while everybody was beating up on Erskine for taking away charter schools or growing too fast or whatever, I was finding these things that concerned me. So I decided to bring them up. Not because I want charter schools to flourish. I think that these are a choice for families that we should allow, and we should have more than 2 authorizers. We should encourage someone in the trades and manufacturing industry to become a charter school authorizer in order to train children who are not college. Because a lot of these charter schools right now are very academic. So we just need these choices for our children. And I don't think either finding this procurement personnel issue for which they were cited, and I was concerned that the Inspector General didn't kind of told everybody it wasn't a big deal, because in his report it doesn't say that. In his report it specifically addresses concerns that he has, that they were in violation of it. But that's fine, that's what we have an Inspector General for. My question is, in this particular case, there was an employee who issued a sole source contract to the National Association of Charter Schools Association, and at the same time received a paycheck from that organization that she did work for. There was no validation for why a sole source contract was issued. There was no, supposedly she didn't use any of her time on the clock, but the record keeping was so bad that you don't know if she did or she didn't, because there was not, it was just not kept. You didn't know if she did her vacation time. You didn't know how she did it. The record keeping was poor. And that doesn't mean that I think they should be subject to the same kinds of, I guess, policies and procedures that the states use, because I've dealt with the state procurement system. It's antiquated and it's ineffective. But they should be required to have a policy on how they will do their procurement, how they will bid, how they will review bids, why they, justification for a sole source contract. I could find no justification for this. Anyway, and didn't be required to follow their policy. I mean, they can have their own policy, but they should be required, if they should be required to follow it. If they don't follow their policy, there ought to be some ramifications for not doing that, because they are still spending taxpayer money, and they need to track it. They need to understand. And I just get the feeling that some people, not all, just don't find it that important, and I do. Anytime we spend a taxpayer dime, I want to make sure it's spent properly.
How much money is the average taxpayer paying for an average charter school in South Carolina?
I can give you an idea for Charleston County.
Sure.
Let's say charter schools only get state taxpayer money. They don't get local taxpayer money. So for example, there is a school out in Mount Pleasant. It's called Oceanside Collegiate. Everybody knows that great school. It's kind of built on athletes, but these kids are getting 2 years of college before they even get out of high school. 98% of them are getting scholarships. The school is doing a great job, and it's in its second or third year. I think it's its third year. They are able to, based on the money that they get from the state, educate their students for about $9,500 per pupil.
Okay.
Charleston County's average is $17,000 per pupil. So they are saving us money. Well, actually, that gives the public schools to keep the money that wouldn't go to the child, because the child is now going to a charter school. So they kind of get a windfall on their local taxes on that. And so you could see they're effective. You could see, I feel they do well because the money goes straight to the school.
Okay. Straight
to the principal, straight to the teachers, straight into the classroom. And I think that's why they're able to do well. They don't have to deal with the upper level bureaucracy of all kinds of rules. They have to have, like I said, they have to have policy and procedures, and most of them do. And you can look at them. I think they should be public. We should see them all. And they're doing a good job. They're doing what they're supposed to do. And I would like to see more of them.
How public should the charter schools' code of ethics be?
Well, they should have a code of ethics, and that should be online for the public to see. And they should have to follow it just with everything else.
And I know in the WIS television article, it reads this: Representative Bennett requested to see the bylaws of South Carolina Public Charter School District and the Charter Institute at Erskine. What are those bylaws right now?
I don't know. I haven't seen their bylaws. Okay. We had a list of questions that we sent to them before we started. And when I asked about bylaws and policies, I asked them both when this came up. I said I wanted to see them both.
Sure.
Erskine had theirs with them because they read through the questions and I knew we might be asking for these. But the public schools, charter schools, said they would get them to me.
Okay.
And I will follow up on that. And the bylaws would basically be what you would write your procedures from, your policies from. It would say what your goal is, what you're going to do, and how you're going to get there. It's like an HOA or any other organization usually has a set of bylaws.
Sure.
Says this is what we're here for, and this is what we're going to do. And I just want to and you would talk about things like adhering to policies and procedures and procurement and personnel and things like that. Wouldn't be in there, because that would be part of your program.
Where are the goals for the South Carolina Public Charter School District in your mind?
The public charter school districts, you can't compare them to public schools because there's a math and science charter schools, there's governor schools. You know, they all have goals. The collegiate school is mostly about athletes. They would establish that in their bylaw. Our goal is, and this is how we're going to get there. So you can't say necessarily that they want to graduate 98% of their people because their goal may be different. In most cases right now, these are all academic type schools. So their goal is to get these children to a point that they can do very well when they get into college. But we know, you and I know, not everybody's college material. Nobody wants to go to college. They want to go do things. And we have failed not only, I think, in the public school system, but maybe in the charter school system, to address those children that are being left behind. Those children that, they can't read and we can't seem to help them get caught up. Those children that just don't want to go to college. They can't wait to get out of school, but at least they're in school and they're going to graduate high school and they want to go get a job and make money. And the kids that are just waiting to drop out of school. We don't have any way to address it. We don't have anything to attract them there's so much out there that they could do, but they don't know it. Everything that we have is geared toward going to college. It's all academic. STEM programs, SAT, science, technology, engineering, and math, and they've added arts to that. Art's a right brain gift. The other four are left brain gifts, but we could probably use a lot more right brain activities for these kids that are not science or math leaning. They may be good in things like English literature and writing stories. We don't know that because we keep focusing on the science part, and that's great for the kids that have that gift, but it's not great for the kids over here that don't. So we need to look at what we're doing and give all of our kids, all of them, every single one of them, deserves an opportunity for a future and a job, a good job. CDL truck drivers. We have a crisis in the state with CDL. We don't have enough. We don't have enough training facilities. There's state laws and federal laws that interfere with that. There's insurance problems with that. No, we can start training these kids early to be CDL truck drivers. That's $60,000 to $80,000 salary a year. A lot of kids would like to do that. We just don't have an opportunity. They have to get out of school, and then they have to usually apply for loans, and they're usually making $10 an hour because they don't have college. They're high school graduates. So it's tough for them to even qualify for loans, all kinds of reasons. And if they do, they have to pay it back. They can if they can get through.
Sure.
If they can get through, they've got the money to pay it back. But it's just they're at a point where it's difficult for them to even get it in the first place. So there's lots of potential for it. It's just they have to turn some kids away because they just don't qualify. And we ought to make it easier. We ought to, not just that, I'm sure if we looked, if you call a plumber lately, unless your house is flooding, your plumber's not going to get there for a week. Plumbers make good money. He comes to my house for 30 minutes, he walks out with $125 in his pocket. We just need to let these kids know there are good jobs out there for you. And you don't have to be an English major or science major or math major. We just need to teach you how to read, balance your checkbook maybe. If anybody does that anymore, I don't know. I don't think they do they? But at least write a check. I don't think they do that either.
Right.
Balance your debit card.
There you go. That's what I have. Well, let me get back to some serious news.
Okay.
Abortion. And this is the headline from the state newspaper. Blocked by Democrats that is, in 2018, SC pro-life lawmakers gearing up for new abortion fight.
And that's kind of a misleading headline. Okay. The legislation that was blocked was the dismemberment abortion bill. And if you recall, it passed the House with a bipartisan vote and went to the Senate, where they did not address it until like the last 6 days they were in session. Right. And they addressed it for 3 of those 6 days. And what happened was that during the debate on the dismemberment bill, a strike and insert amendment was presented, which literally took everything out of the bill, everything about dismemberment out of the bill, and made it a totally illegal for the state of South Carolina to perform any kind of abortion, no matter what it was. It was going to be illegal. I mean, it was a poison pill. Of course, our side got all excited, thinking, oh, look, we may have a chance to make abortion illegal, but that's just not going to happen. At least not until we change enough hearts. So they debated this for 3 days. It got sent back to the committee, so it was killed, but it wasn't killed because of the subject of the abortion bill. It was killed because of the poison pill that was put into it. There is a heartbeat bill that's in like 30-some states now that people are looking at. The personhood bill, I understand, is going to be refiled. And I believe somebody tried to file another dismemberment abortion bill, but I do plan at some point to refile the one I filed last year because it had already been all marked up and ready to go. We'll see which one makes it to the floor.
You talk about that poison, what is it?
Poison pill is what I call it.
What was that exactly?
It stripped out all the dismemberment language, and all it said was that any abortion performed in the state of South Carolina would be illegal.
Okay.
Whether health of the mother, life of the mother, nothing was acceptable under this bill.
Wow. Let me turn you back here to the Low Country.
Oh, yay.
There's so much talk about, obviously, flooding in 526.
Well, it's going to be an election next year because they're talking about it again at City Hall.
That's true.
And, elections coming up. We get to hear about it every 4 years, and nobody does anything.
But what is the South Carolina House of Representatives, particularly your district, going to do about flooding and 526?
Well, I don't have anything, we can do 526. We're working on that.
Okay.
That'll get done. Most of what happens downtown, the flooding, is a city problem. And Senator Sand,
Right.
bless her heart, has worked to bring, because when you go down these roads with flooding, some can be state roads, some can be county roads,
Sure.
some can be city roads. And even then, some of the wastewater treatment still belongs to the city. So she's pulled everybody together, all the engineers, and she takes them around, and we figure out who it belongs to, and they figure out what needs to be done, and they're going to get back with us on how they're going to address those issues. But that's only in Senate District 41. I can't speak for anybody else's district, but we have gotten with our city council, county council, and our senators, and I and other representatives with Sandy Sand to work together to try to address these issues. I cannot do anything about any more. They're still issuing permits to build in the wetlands. That's a city thing. Unless at the state we make it illegal to issue permits, or I don't know what to do about that. But they're still building, even with the flooding issues not being resolved. I just don't have an easy answer for the constituents because I'm just as frustrated as they are. I live there.
Right. You talk about that. Obviously, the Church Creek Basin is a city issue.
It's where I live.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. It's fun.
Well, talk to me how you would work with Harry Griffin and really the city of Charleston on this particular pressing issue in some people's minds.
Well, we have gone down and we've looked at some of these places, and what we found is a lot of the problem is just the lack of maintenance and clearing and cleaning of some of these runoff areas. There's particularly a natural stream in one neighborhood that's just grown over. I mean, it's natural. It was a natural runoff from as long as, I guess, even before houses were built there, but it has worked. But now the water just sits there because everything has just grown over and blocked it from running out to the river. And the city is going to try to clean that out to get the water flowing again, figure out why it just continues to sit there. And they have come out and cleaned out some of the ditches and ponds. The ponds, sediment builds up, the pond gets less deep. So when water runs into it, it's going to come up higher instead of continuing to fill up the pond. So we all go out there and we look at it. We talk with them. Some of it's private. We went to a church, and there was part of it was city. They were willing to address their part, but the church had to address their pond, which had a drainage pipe in it that was blocked, but it was on their property. But they didn't realize that until engineers were able to tell them that. And the engineers said they would clean their end, but the church would have to do something at their side in order to make that all work.
Wow. I gotta go back here to Charleston County. Obviously, you're a part of the Charleston County Republican Party.
Yeah.
And from all the various reports that I've actually seen, there is going to be a fight for the next Charleston County GOP chairman.
I wouldn't call it a fight. I would call it competition.
Okay.
And I think that's good because I think that when they have to compete for a job and it's not just handed to them, they become sharper they become more attuned, they become more aware of what the constituents want.
Okay.
And that I don't think it's a bad thing. I know the newspaper calls it a fight, but it's not a fight. It's a seat that anyone can run for.
Okay.
And I think that we're going to have some people running for this seat, and I think it will be interesting. And I think that whoever we elect needs to just do 4 things. That's organize, get out the vote, raise money, and have a message. That's all our chairman needs to do. So when they're thinking about who they want to elect, they need to look at those 4 things.
What is that message now? Because obviously,
The fact that you have to ask me is a problem,
okay.
because I can't tell you.
Mm.
You know, when I was chairman,
Right.
we had a message, and everybody knew, and that's what the message was. You talked, no matter what anybody asked you, you pivoted to the message. You know, you learn to do that. We had a message where we wanted everybody. We wanted to include everybody, wanted to hear everybody. And I think we still do, we just don't say it anymore.
Okay.
We assume everybody knows it. A message where we have a lot to offer you. We have a lot of opportunity here. Well, people don't assume that. You have to continuously tell them that you're there for them, that there's opportunity, that you have a lot to offer them, that there's hope and a future, like with our students, for them. And you have to tell them what it is, but you've got to stick on that message, and you've got to know what it is you're offering.
What is your message for the constituents of House District 114 in your next 2 years in office?
What is my message for them? My message was primarily education. I spent a lot of time on education and continuing jobs creation, making it easier for small business to do business in our state. You know, we have a really unbalanced tax system in our state. And I'm not against big business, and I understand return on investment, but we can't keep putting the burden, Act 388,
Right.
all of those things on our small businesses. We need to look at that, and it's not going to be easy. Somebody's going to be unhappy. It always happens. But we are looking at, the whole picture and how we've had someone come in. I've been appointed to a special committee on South Carolina taxes. We have the National Tax Foundation came in and just went line by line all the things that are wrong with our unbalanced and incomprehensible tax system, so that we could go through and figure. And he said, when you pull one thing out, you mess up 14 other things because they've all been tied together over the years. So he said, you really need to look at a big comprehensive plan and do it all together. I think that's what we're going to try to do.
What is that comprehensive plan now?
I don't know. I don't know. It's because we have to dig through that spaghetti still, you know?
How do we get here with that?
It's been years and years of, let's give this little guy a break, let's give this little industry a break, let's not tax this group, but we're going to tax that group. Act 388 was the worst thing. People were complaining about their property taxes, you know, so they went to address that, but in addressing that, they put the whole burden on small business because they give large businesses a tax break. So so if you take that away, then boom, all the taxes fall back on the homeowners, you know? So you need to look at how you're going to do this. Another way to raise revenue to support the school system. That's just one example. You know, certain things are exempt from taxes. This 1% when you're over age 85, I mean, my mother-in-law is over 85. She never asked 1% of the 5% or 7%.
Sure.
I think it was 5%.
Okay.
I mean, it's like nothing. It was pennies. She says, I'm not even going to go through that. She didn't do, you know, just these kind of things. And we just need to look through the whole tax system and clean some of them up.
And I got to get one last question from you. Obviously, there's been a big talk in Charleston County about the Marvin Garrett's case with the Charleston County School District. And I know that recently the information or evidence has been turned over to the legislators recently. How much trust do you have in the Charleston County School District after this particular alleged case?
After this case and the 2 previous cases with child pornography on our school computers, I have very little confidence. Very little confidence in that. I don't know I'm trying to find out what the policy is. They have policies for everything. But it seems like the policy is they just move you around and hide you. And they don't want, and I've actually had someone say, we don't want to ruin his career. Well, if you're abusing children, your career needs to be ruined and you shouldn't be around children. If you don't know from the beginning that you shouldn't abuse children, I can't help you. You need to take that problem out on your own and get it fixed, but you don't need to be working on it around children. But we're going to look at it. We have a local committee that's been put together to look at school policies. I could not make the first meeting because I didn't know I was on the committee until a week before, and I was already committed. But we need to look at those policies. I don't know when they're going to meet again. I hope they'll meet soon. I hope we all get a copy of whatever they've asked for. Some people that went were not happy with the results of the meeting and have kind of complained and kind of said, well, I'm not the chair of that committee. I'm just there to try to help. So hopefully we will get somewhere where we can get, but we just had an election. We just had an election. And we are the definition of insanity. We sent the same people back. We didn't, all four. We didn't make one different, I would have liked to see one or two changes. Not anybody in particular, there's nobody there that I don't like. But I do know the definition of sanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result, and that's not happening. And we are famous for that. We are famous for doing the same thing over and over again and thinking something different is going to happen, and it's just not going to ever happen. And our children pay for that. That's what makes it. The heck with the adults. The adults can be upset with me for saying this. Adults, you can, if you're in the school system and you're an adult, you can be as upset with me as you want to. It's about our children, and they need to start coming first.
State Representative Lin Bennett, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Anytime. Yeah, thank you.
Have a good Christmas.
Likewise.